Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gauranga, 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 Satinandana, Jaya Satinandana, Jaya Satinandana, Jaya Satinandana, Jaya Satinandana, Gaurari. Jai Satinandana Gaurari, Nityanandara, 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 Nityananda, Nityananda, Nityanandara, Nityananda, Nityananda, Nityanandara, 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 Nityananda, Nityananda, Nityanandara, Nityananda, Nityananda, Nityanandara, Nityananda, Nityananda, Nityanandara, Nityananda, Nityananda, Nityanandara, Nitai Gauranga, 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 Jaya Gaura Nitai, Jaya Maya Gaurashi, Jaya Gaura Nitai, Maya Gaurashi, Jaya Gaura Nitai, Maya Gaurashi, Jaya Gaura Nitai, Jaya Maya Gaurashi, Jaya Chichotina, Jaya Chichotina, Jaya Chichotina, Chichotina, Jaya Chichotina, Chichotina, Jaya Chichotina, Jaya Chichotina, Jaya Girirarira, Girirarira, Nityananda Jaya Nityananda Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada
Shri Barahadev ki, Shri Tulsinath Maharaj ki, Shri Nityananda Rama ki. You need it sometime. You need it sometime. No, it's okay, just put it aside here. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Welcome to Krishna Bhavan again, and some of you anyone here for the first time? Okay, welcome to Krishna Bhavan. And for those who haven't been for quite a while, welcome back. Looks like we're allowed to start opening up again. And sorry for any inconvenience if people had to test before they come, there's no guarantee with these tests anyway, but at least we try, don't we? So today's a festival. It used to be a 3-day festival, so we're celebrating 3 things. Can anyone tell me one of those celebrations we're having today? No, nobody knows. Paul, sorry. Yeah, exactly. Actually, the calendar day is the appearance of Lord Varahadev. All the other festivals were on another day, but this is convenient. And the other, Pip, you were saying? Nityananda Trayodashi, which is according to the calendar tomorrow, but we're celebrating it today. And installation of Rinda Devi, that's right. And one more. Yeah, inauguration, the anniversary of the inauguration of the Shalagram Puja. So today's program, we squeeze a few of these things in. We used to do a 3-day program, 1 day for each of those celebrations. And we may actually start that again next year. We're thinking it was quite an amazing festival. And so we only have a few hours to pack it in, and sometimes there's just not enough time. There's never enough time for Krishna consciousness. So I'll just briefly go through the program for the day. I don't know if it's been posted to everybody. Has it been posted? Does everybody have the program sent to them? No? All right, so hopefully I've got it. Oh yeah, here we go. So we had kirtan from 2 o'clock. Some of the devotees like to do a lot of kirtan, so we thought for those who want to do that, they can do that. And then I'm going to give a talk on the Shalagram Shilas. I'll explain for anyone who's not familiar with what Shalagrams are, I'll explain that also. And then followed by, so that aspect of the festival will be taken care of. And then the bhajan devotional song by Rinda, who's going to sing the Rinda Devi Astakam. She's not singing about herself, she's Rinda Devi Dasi. She's not speaking her own glories like some of us. And she will also give a talk on Srimati Vrinda Devi. And then Avani is going to do a bhajan, Nitai Pada Kamala. And then she will give a talk on Lord Nityananda's mercy, followed by Bhajan, Nadia Gudrumi by Amrita and Veda. And there'll be some Bhakti Steps awards. This is initiated devotees generally, well, not generally, you don't get initiated unless you do chant 16 rounds a day. But for those who are maybe not on that level, then we try to encourage people that whatever you're doing, try to do it every day, 1 round a day, 2 rounds a day, 4 rounds a day. And then just try to gradually build up from that, because sometimes people think, oh, it's all or nothing. If I can't do 16 a day, then I may not even bother trying. But it's not like that. We try to build up on what we can do. And as the saying goes, don't let what you can't do stop you from doing what you can do. And then followed by Gora Arti and Prasadam. So just briefly, Srimati Vrinda Devi, we've all heard of Vrindavan. Vrindavan's the land of Krishna. And to get entrance into Vrindavan, then we have to get the mercy of Srimati Vrinda Devi. So I won't spoil Vrinda's lecture, but just one thing I would like to say is there was one devotee, I think his name was Madhava Baba. He lived at Vrindakund, which is in Vrindavan, and there was one ISKCON devotee lived with him, and he was always going on about, you have to enter into Vrindavan, you have to get the mercy of Vrinda Devi. So this ISKCON devotee is thinking, oh, yeah, good, perhaps, I'll just reside here for the rest of my life, get the mercy of Rinda Devi. And he was hearing this, and then finally he decided to ask him, so what does it mean to get the mercy of Rinda Devi? He says, go to the West and preach Harinam. So his romantic idea of living in Vrindavan was made more practical. And just like Prabhupada also, he could have stayed in Vrindavan, but the greater thing is not to stay in Vrindavan for yourself, but to take Vrindavan to the rest of the world. Share Vrindavan with the rest of the world. And wherever the devotees are together chanting, that is Krishna. Krishna is there, and Vrindavan is there. And with regards to Lord Nityananda, then for those who are not familiar with Lord Nityananda, if you're familiar with Krishna and Balaram, then Krishna and Balaram is Gora and Nityananda. So there's this Bhajan Golokera Premadan Harinam Sankirtan that Gornitai, I can't remember the actual the Bengali for that part, but basically there's a verse in there that says that these two brothers, Krishna and Balaram, they descended in Kali Yuga. One became Garanga, that was Krishna, another one became Nitai, and they descended to give the pure holy name Golokera Premadan, this gift, this dan of Prema, Golokera Prema, and the medium of giving that gift is Harinam Sankirtan, by chanting the holy names. So whether we do that here in the temple or on the street or at home, then this is the Yuga Dharma. If we think we're maybe the Krishna, when you read Prabhupada's books, there's so many things we have to do if we want to be a perfect devotee. But don't worry if you're not at that standard, because we're all aspiring. But one thing, Kali Abdosha Nidhi Rajan is that although Kali Yuga is a notion of faults, there's one wonderful thing, is that simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, then one can be mukta, sangam param vrajet, one can go back to Godhead, simply by the chanting of the holy name. That's the main thing. So all we have to do is chant. And if we can somehow or another serve this mission of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda by taking upon the chanting and propagating to others. So Lord Nityananda, there's a bhajan we'll be singing later on. Nitai Pada Kamala Koti Chandra Shushitala Jai Chayai Jagata Jurai. So Chayai means Chaya, it means shelter, shade. Koti Chandra Shushitala. So the Chandra is the moon, and it's considered that the moon is very cooling, If you have, especially if you're in a warm country, say like you're in West Bengal, like where this song was written, it's very warm. But at night, with the full moons there, then everything's very cool by the cool light of the moon. And it gives relief. But Lord Nityananda, he gives the relief from this burning fire of material desire, which is never ending. You put the fuel on it. There's this bogus teaching going around that if you want to become free from your desires, then you have to enjoy them to the max. You have to burn them out. But if you've got a fire going and you think, okay, to put this fire out, we have to keep putting wood in it. We have to keep pouring petrol on it, and it's never going to go out. So the only way to extinguish those is to replace, not to actually become desireless, but to replace that desire. Desire is part of our being. We can't become desireless. It's part of our makeup. We have a desire. But how to channel that desire so that the desire is purifying for us? And Lord Nityananda, he extinguishes that by the cooling shade of his lotus feet. So that song, Nitai Padakamala, it's called Mana Shiksha, Instructions to the Mind. So more about that later because the devotees will be singing that. And about Lord Varahadev. So it's mentioned in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that the Lord appears in so many incarnations, innumerable incarnations, stated that there are as many incarnations as there are waves in the sea. Now, can you ever try to count the waves in the sea? Impossible, isn't it? So similarly, it's impossible to count how many incarnations, and also mentions that the Lord incarnates in every species. So we might think, no, don't believe that. How can that happen? So who are we to say what God can and cannot do? It's like, okay, Krishna, you can appear in this form because it's too much for my mind to handle. So the Lord appears in this form of a boar, not somebody who's talking in a monotone voice like myself, but boar as in hog. It's called Varaha Rupa, or Sukara. Keshava Drita Sukara Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare. This Das Avatar Stotram, or the song which is glorifying the 10 these 10 Leela avatars. So he appeared for a specific purpose. And for those who are not familiar, if you've not been to India or from India, then in some of the places, not so much now, but certainly used to be, that the sewage system was the hog. That's how it worked. Open sewer, and then the hog. The hog is the filter. So the hog is used to going to a filthy place and lifting things out of there. So it's considered that when Hiranyaksha, by his demoniac, there was these two brothers, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha. Formerly they were Jai and Vijay in Vaikuntha in the spiritual world, but by some amazing arrangement of the Lord, they took part in the Lord's pastimes. And the first one to get Lord Vishnu's darshan was Hiranyaksha, the brother of Hiranyakashipu. So nobody who was here this morning can answer this one, but what does Hiranyaksha mean? Hiranya means gold. Aksha means? No, that's Hiranyakashipu. That's the other one. That's his brother. Aksha means, like Krishna, Vilayataksham. Aksha means Chakshur and Militamina. Aksha means eye. So his eyes were always looking for gold. He was a big accumulator of gold. He was no small timer. And to the point where he had become a really big controller, not just of the planet, but of the universe. And he had basically overpowered the demigods, so they were so frustrated that they approached Lord Brahma, who in turn approached Lord Vishnu, and he asked, please come and help. This demoniac person is beyond our power to contain. Can you please come and help? And from Lord Brahma's nose came a little figure, and then it grew, and the demigods were saying, what in the three worlds is that? Maybe they never said it like that. But they could understand when it grew, and they could see it wasn't like an ordinary hog, which is untouchable considered, but it had beautiful tusks and effulgent, had a great effulgence, golden hoofs, etc. It was very wonderful, and it was hugely gigantic. And then they could realize it must be a manifestation of Vishnu. Actually, now you're sharing a joke because there's these Krishna stories tapes which were made many years ago, and then there was very animated description of this pastime. So this manifestation of Vishnu, because the earth was knocked out of its orbit and it was in the Garbhodak ocean, then Lord Varaha went and took the earth and placed it in a safe place. And then, as he was doing this, Hiranyaksha appeared and started insulting Lord Varahadev. And while he's been insulted, then he didn't take any notice, which is a lesson for us. If people insult us, don't take any notice. It's just somebody's opinion, isn't it? And if it's true, then maybe we've got something to learn. So once he'd put the earth in a safe place, then he turned around to deal with Hiranyaksha. So they had a bit of a tussle, they had a fight, and as we were saying earlier on, is that just like sometimes in these action movies with the hero looks like he's just about hanging off a cliff with one fingernail, and it looked like all is lost. So sometimes the Lord was creating some excitement for the demigods by making it look like, perhaps Hiranyaksha is going to get the better of him. And then, of course, the Lord would just easily deal with him. In fact, Hiranyaksha was not used to being defeated, nowhere close. So when Hiranyaksha hurled his club at Lord Varaha, he caught it and he handed it back as if, try again. So he was teasing him, and this infuriated him. So they say that the worst, if someone is angry, then the worst thing to do is give them good advice, right? So for your spouses, if your spouse is in an angry mood, then don't try to tell them, just calm down. It's like, don't tell me to calm down. That's the last thing they want to hear. Or you try to reason with them. Wait till they're cool and then reason with them. So we can all experience a bit of that. No offense against any saints here who don't experience that. So Lord Varahadev was basically toying with them, and although there was some very strenuous clashes going on there, and so many threats were made by Hiranyaksha. Today I shall enliven my kinsman by killing you, O fool. He was calling the Lord a fool, etc. And finally, after some time went by, then Lord Varaha just slightly tapped him on the ear, and then he fell down dead. So showing that, the Lord is Ajita, unconquerable. And even though he fell down dead, the demigods weren't really convinced, because they seen that Hiranyaksha still looked very effulgent. He looked like he was alive, and then they seen it was because his body was touching Lord Varaha's body, and that's where the effulgence was coming from. So a couple of things we can take from this. We can take many things. One thing is the Lord is unconquerable, and if we have any difficulties, then we go to Krishna. There's no problem we have that he can't help us solve. We're so insignificant that we practically, we're in comparison to the whole universe, we're hardly even an atom. But still, even though we're insignificant, we're actually all very significant in the eyes of the Lord. And the Lord always protects his devotees. And even though the demigods, they're considered sometimes to be materialistic devotees because they want something in exchange, they want some position, They want some opulence, they want big enjoyment. But still the Lord protects them even when he is approached by them. So we don't have to think, oh, I'm not good enough to approach the Lord. Whatever our condition is, we can approach. He'll protect us. He's known as Bhakta Vatsala, protector of the devotees. And the fact that we approach him, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says there's 4 types of people who approach Krishna, or Krishna says 4 types of people who approach me. And one is the person who's in distress. So that is a bona fide means of approaching. It's maybe not the highest level of approaching, but still it is a bona fide mean. The Lord accepts that. And sometimes that's what it takes. As long as we're enjoying, we're okay, but then we're distressed. Okay, let's run to Krishna now. But we could try to improve that by approaching Krishna for knowledge and to be engaged in devotional service. So the other lesson we can learn is that just as Lord Varahadev took the earth from a filthy place and put it in its rightful place, then we can pray to the Lord to also remove us from this material world and put us back where we belong. We don't belong in this material world. We think we do. We identify with the body, we identify with the world, we identify with this society, but it's always changing and there's no certainty here. But in the spiritual world, although everything's the same, it's actually ecstatic. In the material world, we have to keep on changing to keep ourselves amused. Just like last year's kitchen was shiny white stuff, this year's kitchen might be red, or this week's toaster is black, last year's is white, next year's is silver. People are just creating so much landfill on account of fashion, fashionable household goods. Oh, we have to get a new settee. Why? What's wrong with it? It's the wrong colour. What will the neighbours think? And the neighbours are thinking the same thing. What will the neighbours think? And therefore, so many things are just getting chucked out. But these things, in the spiritual world, things don't have to change all the time because we're not depending on these external things for enjoyment. We are of a higher spiritual nature. We're conscious living entities, and we're trying to enjoy dull matter, which is of an inferior nature. Therefore, we'll never be satisfied. But when we connect with the higher spiritual nature, primarily through chanting, and as recommended in Brihad Naradiya Purana, Harinama, Harinama, Harinama Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nashcheva Nashcheva Katiranyata. In the age of Kali, then the most certain means of self-realization is the chanting of the holy names, and specifically the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Of course, in the Shikshastakam, Lord Chaitanya says there are hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. Nevertheless, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda were preaching this chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And they weren't just circulating it amongst the higher castes or the higher classes, but to everybody. They were embracing the outcasts and they were being criticized for it. Because just like Gandhi, he tried to create this Harijan, right? Everybody's child of God. But we cannot do it artificially. It has to be done on the spiritual platform and it's not even limited to the humans. It's all living entities are spiritual sparks, conscious living beings, whether they be in human form, animal, fish, insect, tree. All these living entities are eternal parts and parcels of the Lord. And the Lord's mission is to paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So to deliver the devotees, annihilate the miscreants, and re-establish the principles of Dharma. In Kali Yuga, the Lord doesn't annihilate anybody, but he annihilates our misguided mentality and tries to give us this pure spiritual knowledge, which comes about by the chanting of the holy name. Also by deity worship and any other kind of service related to these things. So this is a Srimati Rinda Devi here. We'll now move on to a little talk about the Shalagram Shilas. So for anyone who's not accustomed to deity worship, just as we were saying, the Lord can appear in any form, He can appear in any type of form he wants. Nobody can say, no, you cannot appear. Sometimes people say, oh, even God cannot have a form. But who do we believe? Krishna or some nonsense? If you read Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam, Yomi Bhakta Prachate, Tadaham Bhakti Bharatam Ajnami Prayatakmanha. Krishna explains that we have to eat, and in order so that there's no reaction from the foodstuffs, we can offer certain foodstuffs to him. Patram, Pushpam, Phalam, and Toyam, leaf, fruit, flower, and water. So vegetarian. And in the purport, and there's a lecture accompanying that purport, Prabhupada explains that sometimes people say God cannot eat, but God says I eat, so who shall we believe? He says some upstart rascal, or do we believe Krishna? So we choose to believe Krishna and we offer our food. I think that's a very safe bet. I remember when I first joined the temple, a few of us lived here. It was Atokshcha, Ash and myself. We all joined at Chaitanya College. And there used to be amazing prasadam cooked every day there. Of course, all prasadam is amazing. It's offered to Krishna. But I think Atokshcha had a similar kind of experience. Because some of us didn't exactly come from a saintly background, we were used to taking certain intoxicants. And I was thinking, well, I've given up these things, and they're calling this food prasadam, which is like, you feel really amazing by taking it. I was thinking, well, I would just like to know, are they putting something in it? And if they are, then so be it, but I just want to know. If you're not, then that's fine, but if you are, then that's fine. That was the kind of condition I was in at the time. But and then I said to one of the devotees, I said, so what's the deal here? You know, is actually something getting put into this? He says, yes, LND. And I thought, what? What's this LND? I've heard of LSD. He says, yeah, love and devotion. And I think Atokshcha actually was rummaging around the ingredients in the kitchen to see if there was something there. So this is the glory of prasadam. When we offer the food to the Lord, it is no longer containing any sinful reaction. It becomes Krishna. So we were accepting Krishna in the form of foodstuffs. And this is how we become purified. Even if we find it difficult to do anything else, at least we can become prasadam bhakta. We can be a devotee of prasadam. After a bit of prasadam, hopefully we'll be a bit more advanced and we can do more things as well. But thankfully, it wasn't something else, and it was a bona fide thing. It was the love and devotion, not the other stuff. So when the Lord says, you know, I can accept this foodstuff, you can offer it to my deity, and the deity appears in many different ways. If you read the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Nectar of Devotion, the Lord appears in deity forms in so many ways. I'm not sure if I can remember them all, but it can be in paint form, it can be in wood, it can be in stone, it can be in sand. What else do we have? The mind. Yeah, metal. There's another one thing. Clay. Anything else? So these are recommended materials. But even though the materials, there's a process called Murti Stapana, where we invoke the deity. We invoke the Lord to come and be present in deity form. And the Lord authorizes this. So similarly, just as someone says, oh, God cannot eat, we say, nonsense. We experience it. So someone cannot say that God is not in a statue form. And you cannot say, well, you can say God is everywhere, so this microphone is God. This microphone stand, so we can put that on the altar. It's also God. It's God's energy, but it's Chintabeda Beda Tattva, simultaneously one and different. Yeah, it's the Lord's energy, but He hasn't authorized that we can worship this. We can't put this on our altar. We don't just take any old brick and stick it on the altar and say, oh, this is a Shila, it's a stone. So the different forms of the Lord, these forms, we invoke the Lord's presence by kirtan and by various prayers of invocation, and sometimes by yajna, fire yajna. Although Prabhupada said that it's sufficient for the devotees to invoke the Lord's presence by kirtan. But still, we do the other regulated installation procedures. So, but there's another deity, another type of deity, in fact, two at least, we can talk about just now. It doesn't require to be installed, who's already self-manifesting. And we can see two of them on the altar just now. We have Gornitai. Lord Nityananda is on our left and Lord Chaitanya is on the right. And to Lord Chaitanya's left, we have at his, just next to his left foot, we have Giridhari Lal. So he's a Shila, or a stone from Govardhan. Now, in 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna book, the summarized version, Srila Prabhupada explains that if you read the pastime of the lifting of Govardhan Hill, he says that devotees of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness can take small rocks from Govardhan and worship them as Krishna. So this is authorized. And we don't have to install them, they're already Krishna. This is Krishna's personally appearing this form. And also next to Giridhari Lal, on the far right of us, we have Sri Tulsinath. He's called Shalagram Shila. So Shila means stone and Shalagram means anybody? I thought your arm was up there.
Village of the shal trees.
Yeah. Gram means village. Just like we have this thing called Gramya Katha. Right? What does Gramya Katha mean? Village talk, gossip, rumours, right? So as devotees, we try to avoid Gramya Katha. It never ends up very positive, does it? He said this, she said that. Did you hear about this one? Look at the state of that one. So Gramya Katha is not generally something which is very elevating, except for in Vrindavan. That's another matter altogether. The Lord likes to hear the Gramya Katha of the Brijbasis, because that's a different Gramya Katha, it's a different gram. This is the village of Vrindavan. So the place in the Himalayas you can go to in Nepal, and you can, from Nepal, anybody here been to Nepal? Prema and Ahoksha and Ashish. Whereabouts in Nepal did you go? Kathmandu. And we're getting closer each time now. And Pokhara and Narayan Ghat, Muktinath, Kagbeni, Jomsom. No. So if you go to Nepal, you usually fly into, well, you can only fly into Kathmandu. And then from there, you can get a very exhilarating drive to a place called Pokhara, which is, if I remember right, it's about 8 hours drive west. And if you live to tell the tale, because you're taking, I'm not sure how it is now, but certainly when I was there 20 years ago, then you're usually there's 2 lanes, but sometimes there's not 2 lanes, and you're up some very high roads, mountain roads, and many blind corners, as you can imagine, going around these mountains, and very steep drops, where occasionally you might see the remains of some bus or something down there. And there was one person who was relating a story where this person was driving the minibus, and this girl, she was quite frightened at the kind of hell-bent for leather style of driving of this driver, where he was just overtaking on a blind corner and stuff like that with such a dangerous drop and no curb to stop them and things. And she said, "Oh, can you stop? You know, you're going to kill us." And he said, "It's okay, I believe in reincarnation." And she said, "Well, I don't." So it's quite interesting, you know, he wasn't afraid, but and we also have our friend Prem Harinam. He told, because he's from Nepal, he told us also one time he was in the school bus, and he was on the bus, and him and his chums used to just travel on the top of the bus. Of course, you don't see such a thing in the UK, but if you go to India and Nepal and places like that, then sometimes there's as many people on the outside of the bus as as on the inside of the bus, hanging on to the bumper, anything that can hang on to the outside. They're not necessarily paying, but they're just getting a ride anyway on the roof rack. So all the luggage goes on the roof. And he says how many of his friends were on the bus on the top and over the cliff, and they just dived and grabbed onto some tree as the bus went down. So this was a very real thing. Anyway, we're not talking about accidents. We are talking about, but this is not what we came here about, accidents in Nepali mountain roads. But just setting the scene. So anyway, apart from that, as you're driving from Kathmandu to Pokhara, there's a beautiful river called the, you remember? Trishuli. Beautiful river. It's just otherworldly. You just feel like you're in the kingdom of the gods when you go up there. There's these beautiful terraced hills there with paddy fields, and you can see this must have taken millennia to make. You know, there's miles and miles and miles of these mountains that have been cultivated so they can make a living of growing rice there. That's their staple food. And of course, even in Nepal, I'm not sure if it still is, but it was against the law to kill a cow. Actually, in the Bible, there's a verse, I think it's Isaiah 55 or something, that says, to kill an ox is as to kill a man. And in Nepal, that was the same. If you killed a cow, you would you would get punished in the same way as if you killed a human. But I think the Western influence has had some negative effect there, but certainly that was the case recently. So from Pokhara, I believe you can drive now, but it used to be a 3-day walk to get to the Gandaki, which is the river where you'll find the shalagrams. So these, or you could take a mountain flight, which is only half an hour, and you might think, oh, we'll just take the mountain flight instead. But it's no, this is the mountain flight here. It's basically, as we say, it's like a minibus with wings. And the mountain flight would only leave 9:30 and 10 o'clock, 3 flights a day. Sometimes it would just be 1 flight a day if the wind was too much, and sometimes it wouldn't be any flights a day. And sometimes the flight would take off at Pokhara to go to Jomsom, and it would be too windy, so at a certain point they would just turn back and you wouldn't get to go. They'd say, "I'll come back tomorrow, try again." But then there's another point where there's a point of no return, that you get to a certain point where you can't come back. So that was, although it was the easy way, it was actually a bit more dangerous, and we opted for that one, being like lazy Westerners. We thought 3 days, half an hour, we'll go for that. It was quite exciting, actually. Every time there's a little bit of turbulence, because you're sitting behind the pilot and he's like this, all over the place. And then you come to the landing strip, which is basically, it's a sheer drop, and then like a gravel runway, which means the same thing when you're leaving. Then hopefully the plane's going to take right off, because otherwise it's just this. But very amazing pilots, very experienced, and I think every time they land, they always get an ovation for that. So we were given this mission to go and get so many Shalagram Shilas. Lord Jagannath, the Lord of the Universe, under his Singhasan, his altar, there's is it 1 lakh? What's a lakh? Is that 100,000? 100,000. So at one time, our devotee who used to live here, Balabhadra, he was worshipping Shalagram, and he became well known for worshipping Shalagram. And the people used to send him shalagrams and bring him shalagrams, and he became very good at identifying which different incarnation they were, etc. According to the marks on the shalagrams, then there are particular incarnations. And one time, jokingly, Shivaram Swami said, "Hey, get this, I know somewhere where there's more shalagrams than you have," because at that time he had maybe 108 shalagrams or more. It started off with 1, and it went to 12, because according to many shalagrams, it can be a tirtha or a kshetra or a dam. A dam's 108. If I remember rightly, a tirtha was 12 and a kshetra was 54 or something. But anyway, he says there's one place which has got more shalagrams than you. Beat that if you can. So then after the phone call. It was like Prana and PV get called in. Okay, what do you think? So we get sent on a mission to get 1 lakh of shalagrams back to Scotland. That was our mission. But when we got there, so we got to Johnson, and then it's a few hours trek. We took a horse. We went on mule, actually, horseback. It was a few hours. Normally when people go to these places, like a lot of trekkers go there, and the mountains there that they climb, you've got Annapurna Base Camp's not far from there, and you've got Dholagiri, many mountains. I think there's like 8 which are above 24,000 feet in that area. Some of a big group of some of the highest peaks in the world. But normally people go at kind of civilized time, like maybe April, May, and summertime. But we get sent there at the end of January, so kind of January, February time. There was nobody there. But it was also worked out quite good in a way, because at that time the glaciers on the mountains hadn't melted, so the riverbed was very dry. So therefore, this is where you find the Shilas. So we got on the horse, and we were told to go to a place called Muktinath. Now there's a nice temple of Vishnu at Muktinath. So let's just go to the next picture here, so we can see. Okay, so this is Dholagiri in the background. At the moment we're 12,000 feet up, and then the rest of the mountain goes up another 12. And these are the lodges we're staying in. This is the rooftop of the lodge, and that's Dholagiri there. And this is a Muktinath temple. It's one of the highest temples. It's a temple of Sri Muktinath. Also, there's a deity of Sita Devi, because also there's the belief that Sita also appeared in Nepal. And the interesting thing, this is not the Pujari's laundry hanging out, by the way. This the entrance to the temple of Muktinath. And we're very fortunate to gain entrance, because sometimes you go to some temples and they don't let Westerners in because of their past karma, etc. The interesting thing about Nepal also is that even our Sherpa, you have to take a Sherpa with you, because one thing is the language, but also just knowing the way there and knowing what you should take and what you shouldn't take. And pretty much you have to take whatever you need. You don't have to take it with you, take it back. They're very concerned about the environment. And to go beyond this point into other parts of Nepal and Tibet, then you have to get a special permit. And generally they deter people from going there, so they make the permit very expensive. And you have to bring absolutely everything you're going to use and leave nothing there. And they tell you don't tip the locals, because they don't want you to upset the economy. So the whole economy and ecology is very, very on a fine balance. Even when we stayed at our lodge, then there's hardly any trees growing in that area, so sometimes they have to travel for a few days just to get firewood. So they're very frugal how they use their resources, which is a good lesson for us in the Western world. We're so wasteful, isn't it? As soon as there's a little discomfort, then we just start crying like babies. But they're very austere people, and they're very frugal, so we can learn a lot from them. In fact, Prabhat Vani and myself, we were all geared up with the boots and the thermals and the over trousers and the jackets and all that. And there was one girl come up to us and said, "Are you girls?" And she was laughing, so we knew that she was joking with us, like a couple of pansies going around with all this stuff on. Of course, this was January, February time. We were up there twice for 2 weeks at a time. And they were thinking, just having a laugh at us. But then shortly after that, we've seen a couple of sadhus in bare feet, Gumsha and Harinam Chadar, with a big smile on their face. I was thinking, well, these guys are actually yogis. They're able to transcend these bodily limitations. They didn't look like their teeth were chattering or anything like that. They were on quite a different platform, you could see. I don't think they were on something, because they didn't look like they were intoxicated, and they just looked quite blissful. Yeah, so the thing about Nepal also, which is quite interesting, is we asked our Sherpa, so are you Hindu or Buddhist? And they had to think. And I said, oh, Hindu. Because in Nepal, the Hindus and the Buddhists go to each other's functions. It's not like you go there and I go here, and we don't, neither the twain shall meet. So therefore, although this is a Hindu temple, you get Buddhist prayer flags blowing in the wind. The idea is some mantras written on the flag, and when the wind blows through, then it carries the benediction of these mantras through it. So this is the river Gandaki. Normally that river would be expanding the whole way across the valley, apart from this grass area. But we can see just little rivulets because it was winter time, so it was very dry, which was good because normally when you go to the river Gandaki, they say that the system certainly was that when you go to request, when you go to obtain a Shalagram Shila for worship, then you would stand waist deep in the Gandaki, you chant Gayatri, and you say some prayers for the particular incarnation of the Lord to appear. You put your hand in the top of the water, and then the Shila comes. So devotees like Raghunath Bhatta, etc., not from here, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, of the 6 Goswamis, that's what he would do. And typically that's what was done in ancient times. Obviously we didn't think we had the ability or the purity to do that. So when we got to the Gandaki Valley, this little village here is called Kagbeni. You can see the cultivated, very small piece of land here, and this whole village subsiding on of that village. And just before Kagbeni, that's myself there on the riverbed that's dry at the moment. So just before Kagbeni, just like you have the Triveni, you have Kagbeni, so it's a confluence of 2 rivers. It's the river Gandaki, but I can't remember what the other river is. There's 2 rivers, Gandaki. I don't know if it's both of them. There's Seti Gandaki and Kali Gandaki. Kali Gandaki means black, and Seti would mean, anybody know what Seti means? So when we were thinking, okay, we're going to Gandaki, the riverbed's dry, there should be a bit of a scoosh, we'll just go and find some shalagrams. We know what shalagrams look like, so we'll just go and find them. But that wasn't the case. It wasn't that easy. We actually had to pray quite a lot because we went there and we were just bewildered. We couldn't find any. So we were playing, okay, we've been sent on this mission to collect so many of your forms, and so, unless you become visible to us, we can't actually see you. But it's interesting, even in the path on the way up to our lodge, there was shalagrams popping out of the soil, and not the soil, but the roadside, and I'm thinking, well, I'm really going to have to watch where we walking here. Don't want to stand on the deity form of the Lord. So anyway, then we started to see shalagram, and then you could see, okay, there's one there, there's one there. So we devised a system where you'd have a certain spot you were standing at, and then you'd count maybe a few, and then you'd go and try to pick them, and then if you lose it, you'd go back to where you were, and then you'd see them again. So we did this day after day, and we'd collected the shalagram shilas, and in our lodge, we had a table with a single bed, each side of the room, and a table in between. We'd take the shalagrams and we'd oil them, because you massage the shalagrams. Although when we're doing puja for the deities, then there's some very strict rules and regulations, do's and don'ts, so we make sure we do it correctly. And although shalagram puja is said to be very strict, it's also very simple. The main thing with worshipping shalagram is, anybody? Rinda? Ganges water and Tulsi, yeah. And another thing which they're very fond of is kirtan. And one more thing. Just like if you go outside just now, what will happen? With the weather we've been getting? Abhishek. You got an Abhishek from the rain. So Abhishek means bathing. So the Lord, he really, he likes these things when the devotees offer some Ganges water and Tulsi leaf and Abhishek, give a little bathing. Bathing means also rubbing oil and then bathing and kirtan. But to worship the shalagram means also you have to be very strict in your behavior, very strict in your vows. There's two types of worship. There's one called sakama and one called akama. Does anybody know what these are? With desire and without desire. So kama means desire. So sakama means we're worshipping the Lord for a material benefit. And when we take to that type of worship, then there's many, many rules and regulations, and you don't want to contravene those rules and regulations because then there's also specific reactions for not getting it right. But then akama means without desire, that we're not doing it for something out of the Lord, but we're doing it for His pleasure, doing it for the Lord's pleasure. So this is the devotees, this is the Vaishnavas mood. We're serving the Lord for His pleasure. So when we get back at night, we'd have like a rucksack full of shalagrams. We oil them, put them by our bed. And after you're doing that a few days, all throughout the night, you're just dreaming of shalagrams. I had this dream that on the bank, like you can see there's little, just go back again. You can see there's little short cliffs there. I had a dream that I'd found a shalagram which was about 8 foot tall. And I was thinking, oh, maybe we're going to find that one today. Maybe it's the Lord telling us to go and look from there. So I was checking out the cliffs to see if there was any kind of evidence that perhaps there's a little peep of a shalagram we could excavate. And I was thinking, well, if we find that one, how are we going to get them back? So in my mind, I was making a plan how we're going to get this huge shalagram back and it become the most famous temple in the world and all that kind of stuff. But of course, it wasn't to be. But next one. This chap on the left was a local person. And this is Prabhupada Vani on the right, holding Sri Tulsinath when he first got oiled. Usually when you have when the shalagram becomes manifest to you, then you look quite dry, but as soon as you oil them, then it's another way to detect them, that they become very deep black like that. So they have this system in Nepal where they crack open shalagrams, because in the shalagrams often there's gold. And also there's like a fossil. So they sell them as fossils in the market in Kathmandu and places, which for devotees, we're not interested in. But this young man on the left, he was cracking them open and coming to us, and he appeared to us and he said, he's seen that obviously we're looking for shalagrams and he was trying to sell us them. So we said, okay, you're not supposed to buy a shalagram, not supposed to buy the Lord, because how can you put a price on the Lord? And you're not supposed to sell either. So we said, okay, we're not going to buy and we're not going to encourage you to sell, but we'll just give you whatever it was we gave him at that time. I think it was 1,000 Nepali rupees, which was a tenner. And we said, and you just bring to us, don't break, no breaking, okay? Because he had this big stone club and he got Tulsinath and he's like this. No, you want fossil? And we're thinking, wow, that's a big reaction. So we paid him and said, okay, we're not going to pay you for your shilas, but we're going to pay you for your service. You go and find them and come back to us. And about 45 minutes later, they come back with Sri Tulsinath. And we're saying Sri Tulsinath, but at that time, he was just a big, big shila. And of course, because we had this task, which was to bring back 100,000 shilas, we're thinking, well, that's going to be a long time. I was thinking we're going to have to set up camp here for the rest of our life, at least one life, maybe going to have to come back life after life. And I was wondering, is this really what we should be doing? I thought the mission was Harinam Sankirtan. I thought, anyway, the order has been given. So, but I think once the magnanimity, the extent of that mission, once it was realized that this is more than a lifetime's work, then it was realized that, okay, this is not something we're going to pursue. But so then we decided we're going to have to find some very small shilas. This was the thing. But in the course of looking for very small shilas, we found so many other amazing ones, beautiful chakras or markings, which indicated this is a Lord Varaha, We have Varaha Shila's Lord Nrsingadev, Vaman, Kshetrapal, Lord Shiva in the form of protecting the holy dam, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Sudarshan, so many wonderful forms of the Lord. And although they weren't the small ones we're looking for, we thought, we have to just take these back to the lodge anyway. They all ended up back here anyhow. And when Tulsinath came, we thought, wow, he's amazing, but unfortunately we can't take him, he's just too big. We've got a quota. So we thought, well, let's just keep him in our room anyway while we're here, because he's so beautiful. And there was just amazing energy coming off him. And so he stayed in our room for the period that we were up there, and we thought, well, 2 or 3 hours, walk back down to Johnson, where we get the flight back down. And the River Gandaki goes through there, because we got up that morning and we were a bit late and we had to catch the flight, I think it was. Or, yeah, that's what it was on that occasion. So we had to, we thought we'll just drop him off in the Gandaki down there. Somehow or another, we just got to Johnson, and then we were going to be late for the flight, so I thought, okay, we'll just take him and we'll deposit him in Pokhara. We have a friend there whose hotel, he can keep him in a safe, and when we come back up in a few weeks' time, because we're coming back up for more, then we'll take him back to Gandaki and put him in there. So one thing led to another, and he was in Kathmandu, then he was in Vrindavan. And actually, you're not supposed to take the shalagrams from the Gandaki. Sometimes there's some kind of limitation on that. And because we had so many, we had to come up with a plan of either we had to go a very long way, carrying all these shalagrams on foot or whatever, or we thought, well, let's chance it on the flight. So we come up with a plan that we had a few jackets. So what we would do is we'd fill bags and pockets full of shalagrams, and then we put another jacket on top and fill it full of all sorts of rubbish like lighter, this, that, and the next thing. And when we get stopped before boarding the flight and they asked us to empty our pockets, then we're just going like that, very slow. And then they realised, we were holding everyone back, so they said, okay, just go. But we had, believe it or not, we had Sri Tulsinath in a plastic bag because we were thinking, okay, we'll take him down to the Gandaki, but somehow or another we didn't get there. And they said, have you got any shalagrams? We said, oh, just the one. But we had like about 1,000 shalagrams on us at the time. And they said, oh, very nice, on you go, just one then. So we got to Vrindavan, and when Shiva Ramaraj, who is in the house next to us in Vrindavan, he popped over to see us because he heard we'd been to Gandaki with some shalagrams, and Maharaj is, he's very keen deity worshipper. So he said, oh, he'd look very good on New Vrajadam and the altar there, which almost happened. Almost, Sri Tulsinath almost went to New Vrajadam, and I thought, well, he's came this far. I said, if he's going anywhere, he's going to Krunabhavan. So we got back to Krunabhavan with him, actually, on Lord Nrsingadev's appearance day, and he got put on the altar straight away. So that was the story of how we came across Sri Tulsinath. Is there any other pictures there? This is from the flight on the way back. You can see the River Gandaki in the bottom there. Same again. And this is Sri Tulsinath when he was first of all set up for worship. So today, one of the festivals that we are celebrating is the anniversary of the inauguration. We can't say the installation because we do not install these deities. They're self-manifesting. In the literature, Vedic literature, as the Lord says, where we can find these self-manifesting forms of Him and we don't have to install them, we can worship them immediately as they are. So it's the inauguration anniversary. We inaugurated puja. So in that big silver thing, Snanvedi, bathing tray, at that time there was just over 12,000 shilas. And Sri Tulsinath is sitting in front. That was his altar. And behind is a beautiful form of an antishesh made by one amazing artist. What's her name again? Taralakshi. So when we, obviously with so many Shilas, you don't take them all out every day because there's just not enough hours in the day. So all the worship for all the deities is done through the one Shila, who's known as the Pradhan Shila. We do the worship through that. And in those days, the worship used to be very opulent. We used to cook for him every day, and on weekends he'd get halava and sweet rice. And on this festival day, he'd be offered a feast, a big feast. And at one time, we used to have all of our greenhouses. You may have noticed some greenhouses here. So all of those greenhouses were full of tulsi. We had 1,000 tulsis here. So on this festival day, we used to collect, well, for this festival day, the devotees used to collect 24,000 tulsi leaves. So 12,000 would be offered. There was a sweet made for each and every one of these Shilas. Usually, my wife used to make the tablet. This was our Scottish sweet offering to the deities. And over a period of about a week or so, then she'd make a tablet and it'd be cut up and it'd be one sweet per deity. And also 12,000 tulsi leaves, so they'd get a tulsi leaf each. And then there's a big silver bowl, which Tulsinath is offered his bhoga in. And we used to put 12,000 tulsi leaves in that, and we'd sit him in it while he was getting his offering, his feast. So therefore, being Tulsinath, there were so many tulsis were offered to him. So this is here in the temple some years ago. Tulsinath is getting bathed here. Typically, we would bathe the deities in 5 substances. Can anyone mention what they are?
Milk, yogurt, honey, ghee, and sugar water.
That's it. Any others? Yeah, so that looks like honey. And that's Tulsi Devi and Shalagram on the Tulsi Shalagram Vivaha, the marriage of Tulsi and Shalagram, which is also another beautiful festival which takes place. And just a quick thing on the story of Tulsi and Shalagram is that actually Lord Vishnu was cursed to take birth as a stone. But when the devotee cursed him, she didn't realize who he was, and then when she realized who he was, then she also she was mortified that she'd made this mistake, cursing the Lord. But he said, "Don't worry, you can take birth as you can take the form of Tulsi Devi, or was it Gandaki, the river? Both, yeah, I think you're right there. It's both Gandaki and Tulsi. So therefore, Shalagram, Ganges or Gandaki water if you can, and Tulsi, this is complete. Any other pictures? Okay, that's it. So any questions or comments before we move on to the next part of the program? So, yes, Pru?
Look, you say that by the markings on the Shalagram, you know which incarnation it is. You know the street talks about which incarnation it is.
A good question, actually. And Charudeshna, who used to do or Chaitanyananda, who used to do the puja, it was myself who was given the service to do it first. And then once he started doing the service, then he came and said, "So who is Tulsinath?" And I said, "He's Tulsinath. That's who he is." Now, according to South India, anyone here from South India? So generally, Shalagram is worshipped as Vishnu, isn't it? Or some different incarnation of Vishnu. But also, those who are Akama worshippers, they can worship any form of Shalagram as Krishna. So when Nishinka Vacha, or GBC for Deity Worship, when he came here for his first visit, then we were using particular mantras which were in the line of Vishnu worship. And he says, "So who do you worship?" The Muslim says, "Well, Vishnu, Tattva." And he quoted Prabhupada saying, when one devotee was saying, "Oh, we worship Shalagram as Vishnu," he says, "Krishna, you can worship him as Krishna." He said, "Oh, but according to the Shastra, No, he says, oh, but isn't it this and that? And says, I'm saying Krishna. So Krishna is the highest form of worship. So if the spiritual master is saying, I'm saying you can worship this deity as Krishna, then why do you want to worship? Although it's a manifestation of Krishna, the Vishnu incarnations, etc. So Prabhupada's saying we can worship as Krishna, so we worship as Krishna.
You see who you're worshipping as Krishna, is it less possibility for offence compared to the Krishna deities?
Then,
If you're worshipping the Shaligram, the standard is much lower. It can't be. Hare Krishna.
it's simpler. The standards are the same for all deity worship, but the worship, the amount of objects you may worship may be simple. It's like Radha and Krishna, they have to have 5 or 7 offerings a day, and there has to be a Rajboga, and there has to be so many different artis. And in order to have Radha, if say someone, we've heard it before, someone comes along and says, oh, why don't we have Radha Krishna here in Krishna Say, well, if you want to become second initiate devotee and bring another 5 or 6 with you, then we can consider it, because you have to have minimum something like 9 Brahmins to do Radha Krishna worship. Whereas Gaurnitai worship is very simple. And Prabhupada says no offence. Now, because there's no offence, that doesn't mean to say, okay, we don't have to follow any rules then. It's just like saying, okay, inattentive chanting is offensive. But no, so yeah, because Jaipatak Maharaj, he said that Lord Chaitanya is merciful, but he's not a fool. We don't take the Lord for a fool because he's merciful. Or in Scotland, they say, don't mistake saft for daft. Soft for daft. Daft means, everybody knows what daft means, right? Puggle. Crazy. So, of course, the thing is, it's not really to see what less we can do, but we can do it correctly. If we're not up to the standard, then we shouldn't do it. But everything is also deity worship. We come here and we chant for the deities. We might not be on the altar dressing the deities or bathing them, but we're doing service. So we're also doing service for the deities. Everything we do, we clean the temple, we empty the bins. Everything belongs to the deities. Of course, everything in the whole cosmic manifestation belongs to Krishna. But particularly we're concerned with what we have some jurisdiction over using for the Lord's service. The temple cars, that's the deity's cars as well. We don't just think, oh, this is some old jalopy, it's not mine, so I'll just bash into this wall. Or I won't bother checking the oil, that's somebody else's, look out. No, it's Krishna's, we look after it better than we'd look after our own. This is the way we look at it, it's tadiya, everything related to the Lord. And the devotees are also tadiya, they're related to the Lord. So serving the devotees, that's also serving the Lord, because we're seeing him in relation. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was such a great devotee, and although he was so renounced, he didn't leave his family because he's seen them as being the Lord's devotees. So if you see everything in relation to Krishna, then we're already on the renounced platform. And if we want to do deity worship, then we can get trained, and we can start off very simply by learning how to do Tulsi Arti. It's very simple, basically Dup Arti, incense, ghee lamp and a flower. And then we can progress to doing Srila Prabhupada's Guru Puja. Anybody who wants to come and do that, you're welcome to do that. You can become trained to do that. It's a great honour. You can learn how to dress Srila Prabhupada, and we can learn little bits like that, and then we get the understanding of what is suchi and what is muchi, what is clean and what is not clean. Interesting, that word muchi. Anyone here heard that word muchi before? We used to have a game in Scotland called Muchi Stiff, where the school I went to. Did you know that, Ash? Did you know it? Maybe it was a Cumbernauld thing, or maybe it was a Codrum thing. But it was one of these things. It was a bit like somebody tags you, and then you've got the lurgy kind of thing. You were muchi, you were unclean. But it's interesting how that word muchi, which means unclean, also found its way back to Scotland. Same as Peely Wally. What's a Peely Wally? Somebody who is, you're looking a bit sick, right? And the word Peely in Hindi is yellow. And wali is like a wala, like a rickshaw wala, adobe wala, chai wala. So somebody who's pili, a pili wali is somebody who's, anyway, that's kind of another distraction. But interesting that word, the muchi, is known in Scotland. So, yeah, to understand the difference between what is suchi and what is muchi, what is clean and what is unclean. You know, we have our own standards of cleanliness, but in terms of the Lord's standards, one time the devotees said to Prabhupada, cleanliness is next to godliness. And Prabhupada says, no, cleanliness is godliness. So therefore, to understand that principle of cleanliness, we can get trained up on that, what it means to be clean, to go on the altar. And then once one is second initiated, we get first initiated, which is Harinam Diksha. And then second initiated means we get a Gayatri mantra, etc. And we're able to go onto the altar and be trained how to personally worship the Lord. However, at home, we can also do deity worship, and that's a different standard. There's home worship and there's temple worship. Although home worship doesn't have to come to the same standard of worship as temple worship, we shouldn't be lax. We should try to have some good standard. And therefore, Prabhupada recommended picture of Panchatattva or Gaurnitai because that is safer. So we make advancement. Okay, I've went over my time. Anyone get any other questions? I shouldn't ask, but so. Okay, that's. We'd like to now move on to the next part of the program. Shri Tulsinath Maharaj Ki. So it may be possible for you to go and get a darshan of the shalagrams around there. If anybody wants to get darshan, then they could see Javit. He can take you around and you can see the shalagrams. You can look, but you can't touch. Any time between now and when they leave. Okay, so yeah, the next part of the program is Rinda is going to sing the Rinda Devi Ashikam. Rinda, you're late. What happened? It was my fault this time. Apologies. Okay, so we'd like to invite Rinda to come forward and chant this beautiful song, Glorification of Srimati Vrinda Devi. And then we'd ask Rinda also to speak a bit about Rinda. So the words to follow will be up here on the screen. You just position yourself up. Chelsea?
Yeah, I think so. Should I go through the translation first? Should I go through the translation? Okay, I'll just go through the translation first. O Vrinda Devi, I offer my respectful obeisances to your lotus feet. You are bathed in your own splendor, which defeats the effulgence of lightning and the golden champaka flower. The luster of your transcendental garments defeats the beauty of the blue banduka flower. O Vrinda Devi, I offer my respectful obeisances to your lotus feet. Your face is illuminated by the splendor of the pearl decorating the tip of your nose, and by the extraordinary gentle smile on the two bimba fruits which are your lips. You are enriched by the beauty of the amazing and colorful jewels and ornaments you wear. O Vrinda Devi, I offer my respectful obeisances to your lotus feet. Srimati Radharani, the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, has made you the ruling monarch of Lord Krishna's opulent and auspicious abode of Vrindavan, which is the crest jewel of all the Vaikuntha planets. O Rinda Devi, I offer my respectful obeisances to your lotus feet. Because of your order, the groves where Lord Madhava performs his pastimes appear very splendid, decorated with the blossoming flowers, bumblebees, deer, and other auspicious animals, flowers, and birds. O Vrinda Devi, I offer my respectful obeisances to your lotus feet. Who can describe your good fortune? You are the messenger who brought about the perfection of amorous pastimes of Radha and Krishna, the youthful couple who enthusiastically sport in the groves of Vrindavan. O Vrinda Devi, I offer my respectful obeisances to your lotus feet. The living entities who attain the service of the lotus feet of your Lord reside in Vrindavan and desire to understand the Lord's amazing pastimes of the rasa dance is only by your mercy. O Vrinda Devi, I offer my respectful obeisances to your lotus feet. Those who have studied the Sattva Tantra glorify you. You are Lord Krishna's potency for performing pastimes, and you are known as Tulsi Devi in human society. O Vrinda Devi, I offer my respectful obeisances to your lotus feet. Those who are devoid of devotion to Lord Hari and are thrown by their offences into the waves of lust and other inauspicious qualities may take shelter of you. O Vrinda Devi, I offer my respectful obeisances to your lotus feet. Let a person who becomes like a bumblebee at the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna, and who reads or hears these 8 verses describing the glories of Vrindavan, he attains devotional service and pure love of Godhead, and all his spiritual aspirations become fulfilled. Srimati Vrinda Devi ki jai. Gangeya Champeya Tatit Vidindi Rochi Prabhas Napitatma Vrinde Bandhu Karandu Chuchi Divya Vaso Vrinde Namaste Charanana Vrindam Vimbadotit Paramanjahasya Nasakra Bhukta Chuchi Dipitasye Charatna Paranashyate Vrinde Namaste Charanana Vrindam Samasta Vaikuntha Shri Romana Shri Krishnasya Vrindavana Dham Yajami Jadati Kade Vishabhani Puja Vrinde Namaste Charanara Vrindam Jadakaya Palava Pushpa Vrinda Vrinda Nirmadeva Keni Kunja Mata Jivivani Kushamana Vrinde Namaste Charanara Vrindam Rasa Vilaso Pachatishta Vrindavane Tradition Krisha Doja Seva Katopakam Kenani Duchapantat Vrinde Namaste Jananana Vrindam Krishna Chanchavi Vila Pitana Kila Krishna Shanti. Survivor Murtis Tulasi Nalake Brende Namaste Charanana Vinda. Acha Vihina Aparacha Lakshai Chitas Chatamati Charangamati. Pripamaitvam Sharanam Prapana Vrinde Namaste Charanana Vinda. Vrindasakamya Sriniyat Patitva Vrindavanadisha Padam Chabringa. Saprapya Vrindavana Nityavasam Vrindapimantevam Tasate Tata. Gangeya Champeya Tatitindi Lochi Prabha Sapitatma Vrinde. Bandhu Karandu Chichi Divya Vatso Vrinde Namaste Charanana Vinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Rinda Devi, Jaya Rinda Devi, Rinda Devi, Srimati Tulsi Rani Rinda Devi Ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. So just attempt to say something about Tulsi Devi and Vrinda Devi. There's once a king and queen, Dharmadhvaj and Madhavi. They were worshipping Lakshmi Devi to gain her favor. Their dynasty had become destitute due to one member being against the worship of Vishnu and was cursed, and their dynasty became poverty-stricken. And they were worshipping her and to gain her favor. And what happened was that a plenary portion of Lakshmi entered her womb. And after 100 celestial years of pregnancy, on Kartik Purnima, on a Friday, it said, that a beautiful daughter was born to them, and with all auspicious bodily features on decorating her body. And she grew up to be exquisitely beautiful young girl. She never aged beyond 16. And said how beauty stole the mind of everyone and their hearts. So it was impossible to compare with anybody. So the sages called her Tulsi, which means matchless. So, but she soon left home and was determined to have Krishna as her husband. She performed severe austerities and for 100,000 celestial years. And Lord Brahma, he approached her afterwards and eager to give her boon. And she told him her past. She was Jati Smara. She could remember her past. And so she told him, in my past life, I was Vrinda Devi in Goloka, and a favorite friend of Srimati Radharani, favorite companion. And she said she's also a partial expansion of her. But there was one incident where the rasa dance had taken place, and she had the opportunity to have some intimate association with Krishna, and she became so ecstatic she fainted, and then Srimati Radha came on the scene, and she became angered by this, and she cursed. She reproached Krishna. She told him off first, and then she cursed Vrinda Devi to become a human being in the material world on the Earth planet. So but then Krishna said that she would just have to perform some austerities, and then she'd attain Lord Narayana as her husband. And this would be granted her by Lord Brahma. So this Lord Brahma also spoke to her and said, well, there's also this cowherd boy, Sudama, who was also cursed by Srimati Radharani to come to this material world, and he's known now as a demon Shankrachuda. And in Goloka, he wanted to marry you, but he feared Srimati Radharani's curse. So he performed some austerities to acquire you as his wife. So please grant his desire. Both of you are Jati Smara. He also remembers his past. And later on, after some years of marriage, Providence will have it that he'll die, and you would then attain Krishna's Lord Narayan as your husband, and he will curse you to be the world purifying tulsi plant, which is very dear to Lord Narayan, more than his own life. So there's another name of Tulsi, which is Krishna Jivani, very dear to Lord Krishna. So he said that her worship wouldn't be complete without her leaves. So, but then Tulsi said, well, can I have another boon? Because I really want Krishna as my husband, not Lord Narayan. I only did all these austerities to attain Lord Narayan because Krishna told me to. But my heart's desire is for Krishna. I yearn for his association. But I'd like one boon, please, to allow me to lose my fear of Radharani. And so Lord Narayan initiated her into a 16-syllable mantra. And after 12 years, she gained the success of this mantra and became very joyful. And so Lord Narayan also said that Srimati, you'll become as dear to Radharani as her own life, and she'll approve of your intimate dealings with Krishna. So after her austerities, she's eventually met by Shankachuja in the forest, and by that time Cupid had shot his arrows that she would become attracted to him, and they got married. And Lord Brahma himself performed the ceremony. He came on the scene when they met and made sure that things took place as they were destined to be. And so they enjoyed many years of happy in each other's association. And there came a time when he had to go to war, and fearing that this would be the end, she wanted to prolong his take as much time with him as possible before he left. And it was said that how Shankachuda, no one could defeat him. The demigods were eventually complained to Lord Brahma, and so I'll just read something. The other boon was that Shankachuda received from Lord Brahma was that as long as the chastity of his wife was not violated, no one would be able to kill him. Thus, becoming very arrogant, he began to terrorize all the demigods and human beings. Severely afflicted by his attacks, the demigods approached Lord Shiva and begged him to protect them. Then Lord Shankara went there and personally began to fight with Shankachuda. So Lord Vishnu took this opportunity to make a plan to destroy the chastity of Tulsi while he was fighting. So while they're in ferocious battle, Lord Hari, in the form of a Brahmin, arrived on the battlefield. He said to Shankachuda, "Please give your kavach in charity to me, a Brahmin." And then Shankachuja immediately gave him the kavacha in charity. That same Lord Hari, disguising himself as Shankachuja, then went to see Tulsi Devi. Deceiving her in this way, he began to enjoy with her as if he were her husband, and thus broke her chastity. Now the Bhavishya Pramana goes on for great lengths to point out that there was certainly no fault on Lord Vishnu's part. He wanted to maintain the benediction given by his devotee Lord Bara to Shankachuja, and at that time he wanted to protect the demigods and devotees. So for this purpose, he created this particular pastime with the appearance of improper behavior. But since Tulsi is the plenary part of Lakshmi Devi, she's actually the wife of Lord Vishnu, so there's no fault there. So once her chastity is broken, at that very moment, Shankarji killed Shankachuja on the battlefield. And when Tulsi understood what had actually happened, she became very angry and said, "By deceiving me, you've broken my chastity to my husband and killed my husband. You're absolutely stone-hearted. I curse you, therefore, to remain on earth as a stone." So Lord Hari said, "For many years you underwent very difficult penances to achieve me. At the same time, Shankachuja has also done severe penances to get you. By the result of his austerity, he enjoyed you as his wife and has now gone to Goloka. Now you will get the fruit of your penances. Leaving this mortal body and taking a divine form, you will always remain with me. Your present body shall turn into the river Gandaki, and from your hair will grow many trees famous as Tulsi. To fulfill your curse, I will become a stone, Shalagram Shila, and will always live on the banks of the Gandaki river. The millions of worms who live in that place will adorn those stones with the sign of my chakra by carving them with their sharp teeth. After this, Lord Vishnu began to dwell perpetually in the waters of the Gandaki river in the form of stones." So Rinda Devi is from whom all the Tulsi plants have expanded. So in the spiritual world, her father's Chandra Banu, her mother's Pulara Devi, her husband's Mahipal, and she has a sister called Manjari Devi. And her beautiful complexion is the color of molten gold. And she wears blue garments. And as we said in the song in the prayer, she's decorated with pearls and flowers. And she always remains in Vrindavan. She's known as Vrindavani. And she's always immersed in the love of Radha and Krishna. And always yearns to arrange for their meeting and taste the nectar of their service. So she's so Vrindavan is named after her, and she's in charge. She's the one in charge there. There is one pastime where she offered all of the kingdom of Vrindavan to the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani, and thus Srimati Radharani became known as Vrindavaneshwari, the queen of Vrindavan. The king is actually Krishna. So she's the personification of the pastime potency, which is Leela Shakti, and the organizer of all the transcendental pastimes of Radha and Krishna, or the transcendental orchestrator of these forest pastimes. In this way, she can be seen as the kind of temple commander. And Madhu showed us she's the temple commander of Nandagram, and Srimati Rinda Devi, she's the temple commander of Vrindavan. So just as we see sometimes, the temple president and the temple commander, the Dr. Joan, Prabhupada Vani Prabhu meeting every morning to see what needs to be done or seem to give it attention. So the president here is the personified Yogamaya Purnamasi, and she's the guru of Vrindavan. So Rinda Devi is acting under her instructions. So this is her unique position that she makes all the arrangements for the secret union of Radha and Krishna. And they meet every day at Vrinda Kund to discuss how this can be done. So there's at Nandagram, the internal residence of Nanda Maharaj is built on Nandiswara Hill. Vrinda Devi's place, Vrindakund, is at the foot of Nandiswara Hill, near Pavan Sarovar, where Srimati Radharani comes every morning to cook Krishna's breakfast. And meanwhile, Krishna and Balaram are milking the cows, and Purnamasi meets Vrinda Devi at her place to plan the divine couple's pleasure pastimes for that day. For each of the eightfold daily pastimes of Radha and Krishna, Vrinda Devi makes elaborate arrangements for an appropriate forest spot and specific trees, creepers, fruits, flowers, birds, and other animals. So she personally selects various color combinations, fragrances, songs, musical instruments. I heard that she makes the instruments herself, and they're to be offered for the pleasure of Radha and Krishna. She decides who among the unlimited number of gopis and manjaris will assist Lalita and Vishaka, to offer sandalwood pulp, serve refreshments, play musical instruments, fan the divine couple with chamaras, offer pan, betel nuts, spices on jeweled trays. Every single detail of each and every one of Radha and Krishna's eightfold daily pastimes, which peacocks will dance, which bumblebees will hum, which parrots and kokilas will sing, which breezes will blow, is engineered by Vrinda Devi. She'll choose which trees are around at the time where Krishna's having her pastimes, whether they'll bend in this way, or the certain flowers that give a certain fragrance, or to match or enhance the affairs of Radha and Krishna. So her chief disciple is Daksha, who's a yellow parrot, and he resides on her left hand. You'll see him when you see Vrinda Devi in her place there. And he has millions of parrot disciples that he sends around, flying around Vraj with messages of what's going on or warnings of unforeseen events. And two parrots, particular expert parrots, and who act as spies on the path to alert the approach of something like Jatila, who's Radharani's mother-in-law, or Chandravali, who's Radharani's rival, Gopi rival. So in this way, she knows about everything that's going on. You know, they didn't need Google or mobile phones at that time. So, So without her mercy, one cannot enter Vrindavan. She's so dear to Krishna that without her Tulsi Devi, without her leaf, Krishna won't accept any offering. He's so fond of her, and she's eager to give the living entities in the material world a chance to go back to their original position in the spiritual world. So in the form of Tulsi Devi, she's everything to do with her worship has so many benedictions attached to it. So like, for example, watering her, one could be free from the fear of death. Touching her, remembering her, glorifying her, removes all sins. So to help us with this, we worship every day, and with our tilak, we put tulsi leaf on the nose there, and by this we can remember her. it said how Lord Chaitanya, he wouldn't chant his rounds unless there was a tulsi leaf plant there. You know, it says, just as a fish can't live without water, I cannot remain alive in separation of Tulsi Devi. So one can become spiritually strong by chanting with a vow before Tulsi Devi. And all the plants in the Vaikuntha planets appreciate the special qualities of Tulsi Devi. She's known as Pushpasara, the essence of all flowers, or the best of all flowers. And Krishna is easily pleased by Tulsi leaf. So, like in the pastime Govardhan Hill, Krishna was saying "Anyor, Anyor," and they're exhausting all their stocks of food to try and give him more. But Balaram was saying, all you have to do is give him a leaf, Tulsi leaf, and he'll be satisfied. And this is what they did. So the purpose of us practicing Krishna consciousness is to attain the desired success, which is Krishna prema. And when we say this prayer to Tulsi Devi every morning, we're including the men, praying to be a maidservant of Radha and Krishna. So I'll just read through the prayer. O Tulsi, beloved of Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire is to obtain the service of Sri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has his wishes fulfilled. Bestowing your mercy upon him, you make him a resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also grant me residence of the pleasure groves of Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of the cowherd damsels of Braj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maidservant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna prays, may I always swim in the love of Shri Radha and Govinda. So what qualifies us to enter these pastimes is to be the servant of the servant, so servant of the spiritual master. This in the Gravastikam it says, Nikunja Yuno Rati Kedi Sidyai, Yaya Libir Yuktir Pekshaniya, Chatati Daksha Dati Valabasya, Vande Guru Shri Charanavindam. Can anyone say the meaning?
Spiritual master starting to live frequency sensitive distance to the goal seeking entirely state of intense arrangements with affection rather than weakness, conjuring of the affairs and the flesh grows from God. Therefore, respectful obeisance is even what is required spiritual master.
Thank you. Yes, so we're assisting the spiritual master who's a confidential servitor of the Lord, and because these pastimes are ever increasing in knowledge and bliss as we speak, so we're missing out here. So, but by Prabhupada's grace, we've been given the opportunity to reinstate ourselves in these eternal pastimes of the Lord. So, for us to be trained up, we have to have the right mood. And so by such service, if we have the requisite endeavor, we can make it in this lifetime. If not, it depends on us how much we want to go. That's the only price that we need. That's the only thing we need to have is the eagerness to get there. So this comes by knowledge, hearing about the pastimes of Krishna and Radharani and his devotees, to see what we're actually being missing and to value it more than anything we have in this world. So for this also we can pray to Rinda Devi. She's the mother of devotion and wants us back, and we need her blessings to acquire this mood of Vrindavan. So our Rinda Devi deity here came from Vrinda Kund. You may have heard the history. The temple at Vrinda Kund was acquired by ISKCON. This Madhava Baba, he's a very amazing devotee who had been looking after these deities for a number of years and fought to maintain, keep them safe from any attacks from the Mughals and so on, and achieved government help and did all sorts of things. So when it came that he was leaving his body, he approached the Babas to please continue the worship, but their answer was no men, no money. So he then looked to ISKCON, who did take it up and have made nice developments to improve the temple and the grounds there. They've become very beautiful. And they were wanting to change the deity. So what happened was that this deity was put forward, but then she had a little chip on her finger. So in India, if there's any fault in the deity, they won't accept her as a form of worship. So the governing body commission of ISKCON at that time offered her to the ISKCON world and management there to take care of her. And the management of the time said, yes, we'll do so. And so she came. And she's the first Vrinda Devi deity outside of Vrindavan. There's a pastime where the Mughals were attacking and destroying deities. So the Brahmins took away Vrinda Devi and took her as far as Kamyavan, and which is at the edge of Vrindavan. And the next day they went to pick her up, but she wasn't going to move. It's impossible. So there's she's a Vrinda Devi at Kamyavan as well. But she was very merciful in coming here. So they said how she must have been attracted by lots of book distribution that was going on at the time, phenomenal book distribution. And there's one devotee here called Ratnarajini Devi Dasi, a pure devotee of the Lord and devout disciple of Srila Prabhupada. She was very fond of Vrinda Devi. So I think I'll stop there. If there's any questions, I'll try and answer them. I'll just recite there's the 8 prominent names of Vrinda Devi. I'll just end with that. So she's known as Vrinda. The meaning here, it says she has thousands and thousands of Sakhis, friends. Vrindavani, she never leaves Vrindavan. Vishwapujita, the whole world worships her. Vishwapavani, she is the sanctifier of the whole world, of the whole universe. Pushpasara, she's the essence of all flowers. Nandini, she gives happiness to everyone. Tulsi Devi, she has an incomparable form. and Krishna Jivani, that she's the life and soul of Lord Krishna. Srimati Tosamarani Rinda Devi ki jai.
So now I'd like to invite Avani to come and sing a nice bhajan in glorification of Lord Nityananda. Are you going to play harmonium as well? Okay. Do you want to come over here, please? This is Nitai Parakamala, isn't it? Yeah. You want to sing that? So the words will be up here on the board, yeah? And try and follow this nice devotional song. And do we have the translation? Perhaps you could read the translation before it?
I'll do that, yeah. I'll read the translation. Or you could do it.
You want me to read it?
Yeah.
Just now? Have the translation there? The lotus feet of Lord Nityananda are a shelter where one will get the soothing moonlight, not only of one, but millions of moons. If the world wants to have real peace, it should take shelter of Lord Nityananda. Unless one takes shelter under the shade of the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda, it will be very difficult for him to approach Radha Krishna. If one actually wants to enter into the dancing party of Radha Krishna, he must firmly catch hold of the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. Anyone who has not established his relationship with Nityananda Prabhu is understood to have spoiled his valuable human birth. Such a human being is actually an uncontrollable animal. It's quite mellow, isn't it? Because he never uttered the holy name of Nityananda. Okay, everybody. Nityananda! Okay, we're not uncontrollable animals now. He has become merged into so-called material happiness. What can his useless education and family tradition do to help him? Being maddened after false prestige and identification with the body, one is thinking, oh, what is this Nityananda? What can he do for me? I don't care. The result is that he is accepting something false to be truth. If you actually want to approach the association of Radha Krishna, you must first achieve the mercy of Lord Nityananda. When he is merciful towards you, then you will be able to approach Radha Krishna. Therefore, you should firmly grasp the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. The lotus feet of Nityananda are not illusion, they are a fact. One who engages in the transcendental loving service of Nityananda is also transcendental. Always try to catch the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. Thus, Narottam Das is very unhappy. Therefore, I am praying to Lord Nityananda to make me happy. My dear Lord, please keep me close to your lotus feet. Shri Nityananda Rama ki.
Nitai pada kamala, koti chandra sushitala. Jai Jai Jagat Jurai Nita Bina Bhai Radha Krishna Paite Nahi
अहंकार मत होया निताय पद पाशरिया आश्य तेरे सत्य को रोमानी निताय चरण सत्या ब्रज राधा कृष्ण पावे निताय करुणा हावे ब्रज राधा कृष्ण पावे धारो निताय चरण दुई खाने निताय चरण सत्या ताहार सेवक नित्या निताय पद सदा करो आशा नरोत्तम बड़ दुखी निताय मोरे कर सुखी एका चक्रधाम की निताई गौर हरिबो
Thank you, Vanny. That was amazing. I'd like to invite a talk Prabhu to come and give a talk. Powder's just going to get you a chair. Is there a chair there?
Krishna, can you 2 minutes? Is it possible? If not, it's fine.
Yeah, okay, well, we're getting that sorted out, then Rinda's going to do 2 minutes kirtan. Yeah, she shrunk. Rinda shrunk.
Yeah, karo.
Okay.
Jaya Radha, Jaya Krishna.
Jaya Radha Jaya Krishna Jaya Undavan Ji Govinda Govindada Vadana Bhuva Radha Krishna Vade Radha Krishna Show
Radha Kishori.
Radhe Kishori Daya Garu Shama Radha Krishna Garu Daya Garu Daya Garu Radhe Kishori Daya Garu Shama Radha Daya Garu Daya Garu Daya Garu Radhe
Okay, we'll have to slot you into the next festival as well. Give you some more time in Gaur Purnima.
Hare Krishna, Shri Nityananda Ram ki jai. They say if you're doing a drama, never have kids or animals in the drama, because wherever the kid or the animal is, everybody will fix their attention on that, because they're the only ones that are real in the drama. So that was nice. Pure chanting. So, we're celebrating the appearance of Lord Nityananda Ram today. The actual day is tomorrow. Speak a bit to the mic. Everybody hear me okay? Hare Hare. So tomorrow is the actual day, but of course every day in Krishna consciousness we can celebrate any day on every day. So we're celebrating it today as well. And you're coming along, so that's the main part of the festival. And so the appearance of Lord, the significance of the appearance day is that the message becomes more approachable. So that's interesting, isn't it? So the appearance day, actually tomorrow, the significance of the actual day is that's especially when Lord Nityananda is approachable. But of course, Lord Nityananda already is especially approachable because of his mood of accepting anybody and everybody, as long as they have a desire to serve, then irrespective of where they've come from, what color their socks are. Kadamba Kanna Maharaj was saying, never trust anybody in white socks. So, and then of course, if you're not wearing the right designer, I'm okay. I think I'm okay. But it may be the wrong one, you know. So, but Lord Nityananda, he doesn't care whether you've got Reeboks on or whether you're wearing the latest, whatever it is. He's looking to see if you have a desire to serve. So he's very accommodating that way. But especially tomorrow, he's even more approachable. Anyway, so you can remember that tomorrow. So we want to be like Lord Nityananda. We want to reflect Lord Nityananda's mood. It's nice to come to a festival and do some chanting and hear some nice things. But even nicer will be if we can become like Lord Nityananda and have that same mood. We can also want to encourage people and be kind and compassionate to people. And if we go away today with a little bit kinder, a little bit more compassionate, then we can say we have, to some degree, Lord Nityananda's mercy, because we've adopted his mood. So anyway, Jagai, I don't know if you know there's a story, but the story Jagai and Madai, they were very bad, very, very bad chaps, to say the least. And they took a book called the Manu Samhita, And it's all the things that you shouldn't do. All the things that you shouldn't do. So they did all the things that you shouldn't do. They went systematically through the Manu Samhita. Every single thing that you're not supposed to do, they did that. And Lord Nityananda decided, well, they need the mercy more than anybody else. So there's a nice song like that, Patita Pavana Hetu. I am taking priority because you've come to save the most fallen, and that's me. So I'm front of the queue. I need the mercy more than anybody else. So on that basis, then Jagai and Madai were well ahead in the queue for mercy because they were the most disqualified. They were the most sinful. And Lord Nityananda, there was a whole arrangement, and he delivered them. And Lord Chaitanya blessed them and accepted all their sins. And Lord Chaitanya became dark when he took all their reactions. And then they went off and they became great souls. And there's a place called Madhu Ghat in Navadvip, and they built that to bathe all the pilgrims' feet when they came and offer them service. That was their way of trying to alleviate their remorse for how bad they felt afterwards. Anyway, the interesting thing about the pastime of Jagai and Madai is Lord Nityananda was prepared to forgive them, although they didn't have any reason to be forgiven. So generally, we'll forgive somebody if, there's a big if, isn't it? I'll forgive you if this or if that or the next thing. But there was absolutely no reason. So that's the mood of Lord Nityananda, that like the sun shines irrespective whether people are shining back at the sun or not. The sun just shines anyway. So we want to become like the sons, little sons of Lord Nityananda, and just shine very kind compassion on everybody. So the interesting thing about having that mood of Lord Nityananda is that Lord Chaitanya is recommending, if you want to chant the holy name, then you have to chant in a humble state of mind. You have to be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of prestige, and ready to offer all respect to others. So if you're in that mood, then you can chant. Anybody in that mood? Are you in that mood just now? Are you in that mood just now? How about your sister? Are you in that mood? Are you in that mood? Not just yet, no. So you'll have to work on that one. You have to hear first before you can adopt the mood. You have to hear about the mood. That's why we come along, isn't it? To hear, and then when we hear the mood, then we can think, "Wow, I'd like to be in that mood also." So anyway, that's how we learn to chant the holy name. So Lord Nityananda came and he showed us how to do that, how to have this mood of compassion and kindness and mercy. And by having that mood, then we can chant the holy name, and then we can access that mercy. And it's the only vow. If you look in the Hare Krishna movement, there's only one vow that we make when we get initiated. I don't know if people are aware the word devotee comes from the word vote. It means to vow for something. The word vrata, vote. So devotee means one who takes a vow. So the only vow that the devotees of the Hare Krishna movement take is the vow to chant Hare Krishna. And then you think, oh, well, that's easy. You just have to chant Hare Krishna. But how to actually chant Hare Krishna has to be in that mood that Lord Chaitanya is asking, in a humble state of mind, tolerant, and this kind compassion, wanting to help others and have this merciful mood toward others. Then we can chant, and then we can actually fulfill our vow. So it seems very simple in one sense, but actually it's very deep in another sense as well, qualifying ourselves. Anyway, there's a story. Who would like to hear a story? Okay, now this story is so good that when you hear it, you may lose consciousness. So maybe have a pillow next to you just in case you collapse. So there was a Scottish disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and his name was Dhananjaya. And Srila Prabhupada said to Dhananjaya, I'd like you to go into business. And the business that he was encouraging him to go into was to sell Gauranitai dolls. He says, bring back 50. You can buy 50 sets of Gauranitai dolls, bring them back from India, And then you can start this business. You can sell the dolls. He said they can buy books and they can take a doll with it. And he said we can call them lucky dolls, and they can be Hare Krishna souvenir dolls. He says all you do every day, you offer some water to these dolls, and it will bring you good luck. So that was his idea, to do that. So we also had a similar campaign here. It was called the Garanga Campaign. And it was a campaign to get Lord Nityananda's mercy. And the campaign was get as many people to chant the name of Gauranga as possible. And it was a good time. We did a lot of different things. We put Garanga everywhere. We left a trail of Garanga wherever we went. It was on bridges. It was on hair dryers. It was in toilets. Anyway, you know, there was a saga of the Garanga sticker in the toilet, I remember, in Glasgow. It had been put on the top of the wall and then peeled off. Then it had been put on the top of the cistern and had been peeled off. Then it had been put on the top of the seat and been peeled off. And then it had been put on the seat underneath that and had been peeled off. And so I was there, started to do my business and thought, oh, well, we were defeated that time. And I lifted the last lid up and there was a Garanga sticker and it wasn't peeled off. Anyway, the Garanga Campaign was all pervasive. It went everywhere. And there was actually an announcement made on the radio that there was a roadblock. And they said the roadblock is up the M74 or wherever it was, and it's just after the Garanga Bridge. And because Garanga was everywhere, then people were wondering, well, what does it actually mean? So because it was call out Garanga, some people thought it was a plumber. And if you had a blocked pipe, call out for Garanga, they'd be there to fix your pipe. And I stopped this man in Glasgow. And he said, I know what the Garanga is. He said, it's obvious what Garanga is. Garanga is an epoxy resin, which was designed in 1957 for reinforcing structural support in motorway bridges. He was totally convinced, so I just left him with it. He was so convinced. I thought, okay, I don't know if that's it. So... Anyway, whatever way they do, and some people intuitively knew that this Garanga was somehow spiritual. And there was one lady, unfortunately, her son died, and she used to think of her son every time she went under the Garanga Bridge, and she would call out, Garanga! And then she would think of her son. And she said to me, I don't know why, she said, but I was thinking he would get some blessings if I did that. So it's interesting the way blessings, if we want to get Lord Chaitanya's blessings, then we spread the chanting of Hare Krishna. And if we want to get Lord Nityananda's blessings, then we spread the name of Gauranga. Because Lord Nityananda is very, very pleased. Kaha Gauranga, Laha Gauranga. Bhaja Gauranga, Kaha Gauranga, Laha Gauranga, Namare, Jajana Gauranga, Bhaja say Amara Prana. Hey, Prana is the life. He becomes my life. If somebody can get somebody to say Gauranga, then he becomes my life and soul. So that's nice to get there. To become the life and soul of Lord Nityananda is no small thing, actually. And Srila Prabhupada was encouraging people by saying to them, well, if you do this, it'll bring you good luck. So that's really what it is, actually. The whole festival, all the services, everything we're doing is to get the mercy of Lord Nityananda and to get that good luck that Srila Prabhupada spoke of. What time do I finish? No? Okay, so we can finish now again. 5 minutes. Any questions or comments about Gauranga? Anybody else had that? Anybody telling them what they thought Gauranga meant? Or anybody here been to Ekachakra? Oh, sorry, somebody had. Oh, Hare Krishna.
I saw something on a few weeks ago. I was looking at online. I think there's like an online forum about people asking what's this Garanga thing 5 years ago. And one of the people said something like it's a donation fund for building a greenhouse or something. Yeah, people,
For some reason, the Glaswegians seem to say Garanga better than anybody else. They have a real way that they say it. So that's why Balabhadra Prabhu thought that it would be a nice one, a nice word that the Glaswegian dialect could really get their tongues around. Garanga! And even now, actually, I remember a little while ago how things have changed so much in Glasgow. There was one chap who was heavily addicted to very strong narcotics that decided he didn't like the fact that I was giving people books on Krishna. So he was cutting a disturbance. And luckily the boys in blue were just coming by, and they apprehended him, and he said, this Hare Krishna's got as much right as anybody else to be out here telling them whatever he's telling them as anybody else, any Christian or any Buddhist or any, so that was really nice. And as they frog marched him up the road, as he was going past me, he looked back at me, and then he scowled, Garanga, and then got dragged off. So I suppose it was victory on all sides in one sense, if you look at it from a spiritual point of view. So it's out there, yeah. Garanga is out there. Lord Nityananda's mercy is out there, and we just have to connect to that reality and live it and breathe it and fulfill it. It's actually, they say you should live the dream. Well, that's what we're doing. We're living the prophecy. We're in Lord Chaitanya's prophecy, Lord Chaitanya's dream, which is ultimate reality. Shri Nityananda Ram ki Jai. Nitai Go Premanandi Hari Hari Bo.
Thank you, Dr. Jibril. And now I'd like to invite Kala Chanji and Veda to come and sing this wonderful song of Lord Nityananda, which is the Song of the Broker. Is that right? Is it the Song of the Broker? No. Is that which one are we doing? Hadi Gudruma Nityananda Mahajan. One playing harmonium? Hadi? Hadi not here? So you just make yourself comfortable. You want to sit? You want to stand? See this?
Maria Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Maria Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Patiya Chinam Hata Jiverakaram. Patiya Chinam Hata Jiverakaram. Shadavan Janahe, Shadavan Janahe. Shadavan Janahe, Shadavan Janahe. Shadavan Janahe, Shadavan Janahe. Kaburagyai Vai Mahi Vika. Kaburagyai Vai Mahi Vika. Bolo Krishna, Bhajo Krishna, Koro Krishna Shika. 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 Hariya Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Hariya Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Nadiya Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Nadiya Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Patiya Chinam Hata Jiverakaram. Patiya Chinam Hata Jiverakaram. Patiya Chinam Hata Jiverakaram. Patiya Chinam Hata Jiverakaram. Aparada Shunya Hoy Loho Krishna Nam. Aparada shunya hoy loho Krishna nam. Krishna mata, Krishna pita, Krishna dana pran. Krishna mata, Krishna pita, Krishna dana pran. Nadiya Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Nadiya Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Atyachinam Hatta Jive Rakaram. Atyachinam Hatta Jive Rakaram. Krishnira samsara koro shariyanacha. Krishnira samsara koro shariyanacha. Jivadoya Krishnanam sarvadharmasar. Jivadoya Krishnanam sarvadharmasar. Nadiya Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Nadiya Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Atyachinam Hatta Jive Rakaram. Atyachinam Hatta Jive Rakaram. Shadavan Janahi, Shadavan Janahi. Shadavan Janahi, Shadavan Janahi. Nadiya Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Nadiya Godrume Nityananda Mahajan. Atyachinam Hatta Jive Rakaram. Atyachinam Hatta Jive Rakaram. Shadavan Janahi, Shadavan Janahi. Shadavan Janahi, Shadavan Janahi. Jaya Kodanitai, Jaya Mayapur Shashi, Jaya Kodanitai, Jaya Mayapur Shashi. Jaya Kodanitai, Jaya Mayapur Shashi, Jaya Kodanitai, Jaya Mayapur Shashi. Jaya Kodanitai, Jaya Mayapur Shashi, Jaya Kodanitai, Jaya Mayapur Shashi. Jaya Kodanitai, Jaya Mayapur Shashi, Jaya Kodanitai, Jaya Mayapur Shashi. Jai Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai.
Kalchanji and Veda, that wonderful recitation of the amazing bhajan. We have the translation, we'll just read that as well, so everyone can understand what we're singing about. In the land of Nadia, on the island of Guruma, the magnanimous Lord Nityananda has opened up the marketplace of the holy name, meant for the deliverance of all fallen souls. O men of faith, by the order women as well. By the order of Lord Garanga, O brothers and sisters, I beg this one request: chant Krishna, worship Krishna, and follow Krishna's instructions. Being careful to remain free of offences, just take the holy name of Krishna. Krishna is your mother, Krishna is your father, and Krishna is the treasure of your life. Giving up all improper behaviour, carry on your worldly duties only in relation to Krishna. The showing of compassion to all fallen souls by loudly chanting the holy name of Krishna. Krishna! Krishna! Is the essence of all forms of religion. Shri Nityananda Rama ki, Shri Nitai Mahaprashashi ki. So we'll have a few minutes before Arti. And for this few minutes, Raghunath has some presentation regarding Bhakti Steps. Would you like to step up?
Vedic culture is so wonderful that whenever we make another step in our life, it is actually a celebration, and that gives us encouragement. It gives us a strength to carry on and make another goal in life. So we have this program that we started a while ago. It's called Bhakti Steps. It is a program to help people to progress in their chanting. So wherever you make a step, we're going to chant 1 round or 4 rounds. I become vegetarian, then we would like to celebrate and appreciate and give us a certificate. So today we have a couple people who are making their step, and one of the persons are making 2 steps all in one go. So we would like to first call Pranati Bhatt, which is actually the last name is the same as mine. So we'd like to ask temple president to give this level 1 certificate. So, bravo! Congratulations. So we'd like to ask everybody for blessings for Pranati for her wonderful commitment. She's committing to chant 1 round. Thank you very much, Pranati. And next, we would like to award level 1 certificate to Haridarshan Bhatt.
Perfect.
And at the same time, he also is making a 2nd step, taking a level 2 certificate. Bravo! So level 2 means 4 rounds and vegetarian diet. So he wanted to collect even though he already, I think, been doing level 2 for a little while, he wanted to also get a level 1 certificate so you can put it on a wall, level 1, level 2, and then you know that the next step is level 3. Yes. He's ahead of the game already. That's right.
You give him level 4, but he just wants to collect them first.
So I would like to ask all the assembled devotees for their blessings for these 2 wonderful Vaishnavas who are making this wonderful commitment and setting example for all of us as well. Haribol. So if you're interested in Bhakti Steps program, we have a flyer just outside. You can pick it up, and if you would like to follow in the footsteps of these great Vaishnavas, then the next festival you could award and appreciate your commitment as well. Jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
So would anybody like to share anything, any realizations or nice experiences they may have had in relation to getting the mercy of Lord Nityananda?
Everyone's very humble.
So we actually have got the mercy because we're chanting Hare Krishna. Actually, when Srila Prabhupada arrived in Boston Harbor, then he wrote a song, Markini Bhagavat Dharma, and in that he said that the holy name of Garanga will be spread to every town and village. Of course, Lord Chaitanya's mission is to spread the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But Srila Prabhupada did specifically mention the holy name of Lord Garanga would spread to every town and village. So being part of the Scottish Church means being part of that Garanga campaign. And therefore we have been receiving the mercy of Lord Nityananda. So sometimes people think, oh, we just want Radha Krishna. But actually, Radha Krishna piety now, we just read and we sung in that bhajan, that unless we get the mercy of Lord Nityananda, we cannot enter into the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Because Lord Nityananda is Balaram, he's Adi Guru, and he's no small timer. He is the first expansion of Krishna, and he is the person who shows us how to serve Krishna. So the spiritual masters, it's also mentioned that one cannot spread this Krishna consciousness movement unless one is empowered by either Srimati Radharani or Lord Nityananda. So therefore, as people who are practicing Krishna consciousness, who are getting some nice experience from this, then we want to share that experience with others, so we want to get the mercy of Lord Nityananda. And because we were actually calling out Garanga for so long, then Lord Garanga and Lord Nityananda decided to come to Scotland to see what all the fuss was about. And they remained here for some time. But please don't think that the worship of the deities is just here for a few souls who happen to reside here. And please come to the point of getting initiated, first initiated, second initiated, and come and serve the deities. Come on beyond the altar. It's not something which is beyond you. This Bhakti Steps is leading us from the level of not having any principles or any devotional engagement right to the point of getting initiated, and then second initiated, and then we can be actively serving. And before we do that, we can also still serve the deities, whatever we do, to serve their mission. That is also directly serving them, not just that we're not doing service unless we're on the altar. Everything is service for the deities, because their mission is what we are here for. So please somehow or another try to help this mission, and this way you'll get Lord Nityananda's mercy. Bhaja Garanga Kaha Garanga La Ha Garanga Namare Je Jana Garanga Bhaja Se Amara Pranare. So when we chant the holy name of the Lord, we worship the Lord. And worshiping the Lord means that we want to serve this mission of Lord Chaitanya. By serving this mission of Lord Chaitanya, then Lord Nityananda will bestow his blessings. And just as Jagai and Madai received the mercy of Lord Chaitanya because of the compassion of Lord Nityananda, then we too, when we come under his shelter, then we get Lord Chaitanya's blessings. So now I'd like to ask everybody to stand up, and we'll have Arti. So if you put your chairs and mats away, and we'll have Arti, Gora Arti. Shri Nityananda Rama ki, Shri Shri Koditai Ma Prashashi ki. Shashi Jaya Koda Nika Jaya Maya Shashi Jaya Koda Nika Jaya Maya Shashi Jaya Koda Nika Jaya Maya Shashi Shri Koditai Ma Shashi Ki. Shiva Jaya Jaya Gora Chandir Aruti Kushoba. Janavitatavani Jagamanaloga Janavitatavani Jagamanaloga Jate Nenitacha Tamigadadhara Jate Nenitacha Tamigadadhara Ekate Advaita Shini Asachatradara Ekate Advaita Shini Asachatradara Vase Achigorachan Atasimasane Vase Achigorachan Atasimasane Arati Korena Brahma Adideva Jane Arati Korena Brahma Adideva Jane Nadari Adikori Chamaradulaya Nadari Adikori Chamaradulaya Sanjaya Mukunda Vasu Doshadikaya Sanjaya Mukunda Vasu Doshadikaya Lanka Bhajiganta Bhaji Bhaji Karatala Lanka Bhajiganta Bhaji Bhaji Karatana. Madhura Mridanga Bhaje Haramarasala. Madhura Mridanga Bhaje Haramarasala. Shankabhaji, Shankabhaji, Madhur, Madhur, Madhur Bhaji. 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 Madhur, Madhur, Madhur Bhaji. Madhur, Madhur, Madhur Bhaji. Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gora Hari Bo. Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gora Hari Bo. Koti Chandra Jini Adana Ujala. Koti Chandra Jini Adana Ujala. Kala Deshe Vandamala Kore Jalamala. Kala Deshe Vandamala Kore Jalamala. Shiva Sukanara Eme Kadagada. Shiva Sukanara Preme Gada Gada Akati Vinodadeke Kurara Sampada Akati Vinodadeke Kurara Sampada Shiva Jaya Jaya Gora Chande Aroti Kushobha Jana Vitata Vane Jagamana Lopa Kurangira Roti Choba Jaga Janamano Loba Gorangera Roti Choba Jaga Janamana Loba Gorangera Roti Choba Jaga Janamana Loba Gorangera Roti Choba Jaga Janamana Loba Jaga Janamana Loba Jaga Janamana Loba Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Kodanita Jaya Maya Purushashi 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 Jaya Nityananda Ram Jaya Nityananda Ram Jaya Nityananda Ram Nityananda Ram Jaya Nityananda Ram Jaya Nityananda Ram Jaya Nityananda Ram Nityananda Ram Goranga, 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 Goranga. Goranga, 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 Goranga. Goranga, 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 Goranga. Goranga, 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 Goranga. Nitai Goranga, Nitai Goranga. Nitai Goranga, Nitai Goranga. Nitai Goranga, Nitai Goranga. Nitai Goranga, Nitai Goranga. Nitai, 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 Nitai Goranga. Nitai, 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 Nitai Goranga. Nitai Goranga, Nitai Goranga. Nitai Goranga, Nitai Goranga. Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana. Jaya Sachinandana, Jaya Sachinandana. Jaya Sachinandana Gaurahari. Jaya Sachinandana Gaurahari. Jaya Sachinandana Gaurahari. Jaya Sachinandana Gaurahari. Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Gaura Haribo. Haribo, 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 Haribo. Haribo, 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 Haribo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Prabhupada ki, Shri Kodai Mahaprashashi ki, Shri Nityananda ki. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivraja Vicharis Tatar Shri Srimati's Divine Grace Abhay Charanara Rinda Bhakti Swamaran Shri Prabhupada ki. ISKCON Founder Charya BBT Founder Charya Shri Prabhupada ki. Shri Guru Parampara ki. Holy Vaishnava ki. Sati Swami Prabhu ki. Prem Shri Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki. Shri Nityananda Ram ki. Shri Nityananda Ram ki. Shri Kodnitai ki. Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan ki. Shri Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki. Shri Navadip Mayapur Dham ki. Shri Nilachal Jagannath Puri Dham ki. Shri Kunabam Dham ki. Gangamaya Munimaya Tulasi Devi Bhakti Devi ki. Brihat Badanga Transcendent Book Distribution ki. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki. Shri Prasadam Distribution ki. Shri Shri Kodnitai Mahaprashashi ki. Shri Tulsinath Maharaj ki. Shri Giridhari Lal ki. Srimati Vrinda Devi ki. Shri Varaha Devi ki. ISKCON Guru Vrinda ki. Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. All glories to some devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Garanga. Namaste Narasimhaya. Pralada Lada Dayane. Hiranya Kashi Purvasha. Shilata Kanakalaye. Ito Nisingha Harato Nisingho. Yato Yato Yabitato Nisingha. Bahir Nisingho Hriday Nisingha. Singamadim Sharanam Prapati Avakara Kamalabari Nakam Adutta Shringa Kalita Iranya Kashipu Kamabringa Deshapatrika Narahiruka Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Avakara Kamalabari Shabadrita Narahariruka Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Bhagwan ki, Prahlad Maharaj ki, Deity Worship. So I'd like to thank everyone for coming along to the festival, today's festival. Next festival will be Gaur Purnima, same place, on a Sunday, the something of March. Give me a second. I think it's, is it the 20th? 20th. Yeah. 20th of March. We'll let you know anyway. And hopefully everything will be of a standard where we can all come together again. So we'd like to thank everyone for coming along, taking part, and also for your continued support of Srila Prabhupada's mission here in Scotland. And also to let you know that we're almost there with the cows in terms of the fundraising for phase 1. So thanks to everybody for that support. And that's only the first part of phase 1. If anybody would like to actually come and be a bit hands-on, if you have any cowherd boys or cowherd girls, or you'd like to come and get some experience of working with the cows, then I think somebody just volunteered, somebody there. You've been volunteered. And if you're not sure about cows, then we have some alpacas. You can come and learn on them first. It's a big step actually to do this, especially for a small group of us here. You know, we can use all the help we can get. We certainly appreciate all the funds which are coming, but even more important than that is if people can come and spend some time to help out and get that experience and the blessings of Krishna. Gobarmana Hitayacha, the cows are very dear to Lord Krishna. That's why it's called Gopal, Gopinath, Govinda. So many Go names there. Also, the shop is open. I was actually meant to make an announcement some time ago, but just as well I didn't because Rinda's still here. If I'd made the announcement, you'd have went anyway. So the shop will be opened for the next hour. If you'd like to pop in and see if there's anything, any devotional items that are suit your fancy. I don't think there's anything else to say except for it's now prasadam time, which will be served in Garanga Hall. Guru Ki, Shri Prabhupada Ki, Shri Shikodi Tai Maharaj Ki, Shri Varahadev Ki, Shri Tulsinath Maharaj Ki, Srimati Rinda Devi Ki, Thakur Premanande.